Welcome to Fall City Christian Church. Let's all stand to worship this morning. I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. He won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. The same God who never fails will not fail me now. He won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. Working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. And nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. And nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will.
All right, good morning, y'all. Are you guys awake yet? You should be, because it's freaking cold outside. Just the walk to your car should have awakened you, woken you up. Are you woke? Is that the? Stay woke, y'all. Stay woke. I want to welcome you guys to Fall City Christian Church. I'm up here introducing everything because he's got a beautiful voice, but we don't know if we can trust him talking yet. So, is that fair?
That's fair.
That's fair. Zach has a gorgeous voice, and I'm glad that he can step in and help lead. Ryan is hanging out in Gatlinburg, I think, right now. No? So Ryan is hanging out on the toilet right now. But they were supposed to go to Gatlinburg. I'd rather get food poisoning than be attacked by a bear, though. So, okay. They got attacked by a bear down there? They got sick down there, so they're back or on their way back. So, okay. So, we just want to welcome you. This is a point in time when we're able to bring back a portion of what God has blessed us with. I call it bring back because it's not something we give, because we're just stewards of it. It's not like we own what we have. We are just able to manage it for a time. And this goes toward helping do what we do here and the things that we do in the community, helping people out, and also do really fun stuff like our youth programming and our children's ministry over there. So this is just an opportunity to be a part of something that is greater than you. And we take this moment as a piece of our worship and a piece of our celebration. And as we do this next song, I just pray that we can give with a joyous heart. So once again, welcome.
He is
seat. So when sin hit the earth through the form of Adam and Eve, there was just this simple rule that something has to die. In order to cover the nakedness and the shame and the guilt that comes along with sin, something simply has to die. And all the way through the Old Testament and even through the first part of the New Testament, through the first part of the Gospels, that rule remained a staple in religion. And what would happen is, at that point in time, somebody like me would bring a sheep from their family farm to the altar, and they would look at that sheep, and they would examine that sheep, and they would look deep into the lamb's eyes and make sure that there were no issues, and they would open up its mouth and make sure there were no spots on the tongue, and they would feel around, make sure there were no lumps or anything abnormal, and then they would take that sheep and they would kill it. This little lamb, and then they would open it up and they would examine its organs and muscle tissue and everything. I know that sounds terrible. That sounds gross. And if they found something wrong with this lamb, they would take it and they would throw it in a pile of rejects. In a sense, the lamb died for nothing. Right? And so for all of humanity, we've kind of been programmed and expected to bring our best, to offer to God, to cover our sins, to cover our shame, to cover our nakedness, until one moment God looks down on humanity and he says, that's enough. Let me give my best. Let me give the Lamb who is perfect now and forever. This is the very last time that something has to die. This will cover your sin, your nakedness, and your shame once and for all, if you're willing to step into a relationship with Jesus. And every week here at Fall City, we celebrate that. We remember that. We remember the fact that something had to die. Not only was it something, but it was someone, and it was the only one who could die once and for all to cover our sin. And so we partake of the cup and we partake of the bread that represents the body and the blood that was shed for us. It not only gives us salvation, but it gives us a hope and a life that we could never have otherwise. This is one of my favorite times in our church services. This moment to sit and to dine with the one who died for us once and for all. It's both a very intimate, eyeball to eyeball, one-on-one situation with our Savior, and also a very important corporate family gathering. This is what we call communion, the Lord's Supper. I call it a celebration of our salvation. And so I'd like to invite you guys to partake in this, to celebrate this fact that Jesus died for us once and for all, and that he was the only one that could do it now and forever. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for the fact that you were willing to just stop it and say, that's enough. This is the last time that something has to die. And as we celebrate, as we partake of this cup that represents the blood that was poured out, that covers our iniquities, Lord. As we partake of this bread that represents the body that was broken for us, that was sacrificed for us in our stead, I pray that we can clear everything out of our minds, out of our hearts, out of our schedules, out of our attention, Lord, and just focus solely on this gift that was given to us. It's in the name of Jesus I pray. Amen. This is normally the portion where Ryan prays, and essentially in his prayer repeats the verses from the song he just sang to bide me time to get up here and get situated. That's pretty much how it works. Wasn't this awesome? Like, the vibe was super cool. I don't know if it's because I'm tired. Thank you. Good looking out, bro. I don't know if it's because I'm tired, but I got a little emotional on that one. Or I don't know if it's because I'm super excited about this next series, because I am super excited about this next series. We're jumping into a series called, in honor of the Roaring Twenties, called The Great That's Me. Do we have a logo? This is where the logo comes up. There you go. The Great That's Me. It's kind of my spiritual take on The Great Gatsby, okay? And it's a lot different from the last 2 weeks, because we've just spent 2 weeks talking about how to kill, prepare, and eat an elephant, which is a little weird, I know. But I believe I learned a lot preparing for it. I hope you guys learned a lot. But we're still in January. It's the beginning of the Roaring Twenties. So let's jump into this combination of The Great Gatsby and a little self-reflection. I thought that'd be useful as we prepare to take on the process of our next steps in life. But I feel like I'm a little underdressed for this series. I mean, if you think about it. So let's just get going here. All right? Oh, yeah. I just feel like it's not a party until somebody's wearing a tux, right? And this is a tuxedo t-shirt, so it says I'm formal, but I still like to party a little bit, okay? So The Great Gatsby is this story. I don't know, how many of you guys have read the book? Great. I haven't. I don't read books. How many of you guys have seen the movie, though? Yes. You guys have seen the movie. It's a story with several twists, several turns that show like the capabilities of all of our insecurities and the things we're trying to chase in life, and also our willingness to both chase down what we want, but also our willingness to put on a show and pretend like we are somebody that we are not, as to reveal who we really are or what we're really chasing down. A lot of times what happens is we put on this show and we think it's making us look one way, but it kind of reveals our true colors in the end, right? And so we're going to spend the next, including today, the next 10 weeks kind of putting our thumb on what our true colors are. It's going to be a lot of fun, but I think there's going to be a series of cautionary tales that we dive into in this next series. And so we are kind of partnering this with a thing called an Enneagram test. Have you guys heard of that? Yeah. Okay. Both of you guys have heard of an Enneagram test. And basically, it initially was inspired to me by this church in California called Sandals Church via Quentin, because he geeks out over stuff. And he's like, look at all this. And he starts sending me all these texts and links and this and that. And I'm overwhelmed, Quentin. But in a sense, there's about 9 core sins that we could hone in on, if you will, that give birth to 9 specific personality types, characteristics, if you will. And so as we spend the next several weeks unpacking these personality types, you may feel more attached to one than to others. Some of you will find pieces in each of them that fit in your life, which means you are just a straight-up heathen. No, I'm just kidding. But what we want to do is begin the journey in figuring out why you are the way you are, why I am the way I am, based off of our personality type and from a spiritual sense, your core sin. And that sounds offensive, right? Like, what's your big sin? We've got one honest person in this room. And I know it sounds heavy, and it is, but everyone has this core sin, and it's not meant to be offensive, okay? The gospel was never meant to be offensive, but it is offensive because it tells us that we all have a core sin, and we aren't good enough, right? But it is meant to be real and to help us become a better version of ourselves. So over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about these different characteristic types. You have the reformer, the helper, the individualist, the observer, the loyalist, the enthusiast, the challenger, the achiever, and the peacemaker. Okay? There's 9 of those, and we're going to hone in on each one of those. Each week, we're going to talk about the negative aspects, and we're going to talk about how it can be a positive, or maybe the other side of the coin that can make that positive. And so each week, we're going to explore one. We'll talk about the core sin at hand. We'll talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, the positive aspect of the characteristic, and how to attack the negative aspect of the characteristic. For some, this will be incredibly interesting. For some, it'll be incredibly boring. For some, it will be challenging. For some, it will be offensive. Hopefully, for all, though, it will be eye-opening and a potential starting line to figure out, like, who is the real you lost in this culture of being a poser for the most part, right? And so before we dive into this over the next 9 weeks, I want to unpack the mindset that we all need to have going into this series, all right? It's simple to think about, but once you get into it and once you dissect it, it's extremely complex, hard, hurtful in some situations, and it's basic honesty. Honesty. Now that sounds like something we should all have, but that's harder to do if we're being honest, which I hope we are because we're talking about honesty. That's something that's hard to do because sometimes to be honest hurts somebody's feelings. Sometimes to be honest makes you hate looking in the mirror, right? But we're going to unpack this kind of concept of honesty and who we need to be honest with in order to take these next steps in these next 9 weeks. And so we'll never get where we need to be if we cannot learn to be honest. And the first person we need to be honest with is God. We need to have honesty with God, which sounds kind of weird considering that He already knows our hearts. If you think about this, God knows things about you that you do not even know about you yet. There are going to be these things decades down the road that clicks with you and you're like, oh my gosh. That all along? Really? And God's sitting up like, yeah, I tried like 1,000,000 times to show you that, but you were too busy fronting. you were too busy trying to pretend being somebody that you weren't. And we all need to have an attitude towards God that is focused on this ability to lay everything out in front of Him. And that sounds like a big risk, but the fact of the matter is he already knows. But there's this thing that happens whenever you put forth the effort to make the choice and to lay it all out. It's almost like, okay, I know you already know all of this about me, but I'm willing to trust you with it. I'm willing to trust you with it, right? But that's the crazy thing about God, because he gives us that choice to obey or deny. He gives us the choice for progress or not. He gives us the choice to walk deeper with him or not. It's a choice. He gives us the choice to lay it all out. And a lot of times whenever we do hit that moment where we lay it all out, we see big payoffs. We don't do it, like when you really lay it all out, you don't do it for the payoff. You do it for the relationship. And so I would like to think that we are willing, but if we're being honest, since that's what we're talking about, aren't we all kind of sandbagging a little bit? Anybody else here can be honest and admit that they're sandbagging with God a little bit? Like there are these compartments that we've not quite let him into yet, that he doesn't get access to. Because for some reason it's too hard, or it's too private, or we just don't know how to deal with it. And if we don't know how to deal with it, then we can't trust God to deal with it. I mean, he only created everything. And so there are things that we just can't seem to hand over, and it's different for each person. Some of you guys have a different backstory, a different background. Some of you guys have done some super sketchy things that you can't let go of. Some of you guys have had some super sketchy things done to you that you can't seem to let go. For some of us, it comes from a different place. It comes from a place of pride, like I am going to conquer this. I am going to handle this. For some of you, it comes from a place of fear, like I don't know what to do if this begins to unravel on me. For some of you, it comes from a place of pain, or and I don't mean this to sound rude, but for some of you, it just comes from a place of ignorance. You just don't know what God's capable of yet. For people like me, and as I hone in on this, I'm going to be uncomfortably honest with you guys for the next 10 weeks. For me, my compartments that I hide from God come from a place of laziness. Like, if I open this box and step into this journey, that's going to create more work for me. And I don't want more work. I want to watch Netflix. I can't watch Netflix if I have more work, right? And so honestly, it comes from a place of laziness. But no matter what it is, there's something inside of most people that they have, that they've compartmentalized and refused to hand it over to God. So we must, if we are to truly become our best, lay it out there and give it all to him. Regardless of the pain, regardless of the fear, regardless of the pride, regardless of the laziness. We must lay it out there. There's this guy in the Bible, his name is David. I don't know if you've heard of him. King David. Y'all know David, don't you? Yeah? He's a little farm boy. Whooped a giant. Became the king. Kind of a big deal. Has many leather-bound books, and his office smells of rich mahogany. That David. The one, he was a big deal. But he was also the David that had an affair with a woman named Bathsheba. And not only did he have an affair, but he got her pregnant. Not only did he get her pregnant, but then he came up with this huge plan to murder her husband and make it look like an accident so he didn't get caught in this situation. That David. The David we all celebrate, but then he has this one moment, or maybe several moments, we don't know. Or maybe these moments that he compartmentalizes that he doesn't share with God until he feels like he has to share them with God. That David, the David that we celebrate, that is king and he's awesome, but he also screwed up a little bit. He was known as a man after God's own heart. That David. Is it possible to be a man after God's own heart, but have a sex issue and a murder issue? Like, that's a problem, right? In Acts chapter 13, verse 22, it says, "But God removed Saul and replaced him with David, a man about whom God said, I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. And it says this, he will do everything I want him to do. And maybe a couple things I don't want him to do. And maybe a couple things that he's going to carry. And maybe a couple things that he's going to compartmentalize. And maybe a couple things that he's going to be extremely guilty over. But I'm hoping that he can share that with me. And he can be vulnerable in that moment. We need to understand something about David. He was willing to bear it all for his relationship with God. It almost sums up who he is, regardless of position, or regardless of past, or regardless of situation. This is his cry out to God. Hands down, I know I say this a lot, but this is like my life verse. There are a lot of passages, a lot of verses, I'm like, I love this story, right? But this is my life verse. This is, I pray this almost every day. It's out of Psalms chapter 51. It really the first verse out of this, but I want to add a few more to it. It simply says this: create in me a clean heart. God, create in me a clean heart, because there's a lot of mess here. There are a lot of things that are jacked up. I have murdered people. Create in me a clean heart. I have had affairs. Create in me a clean heart. The things that I have done and I have seen and I have allowed to happen in battle. Lord, please create in me a clean heart. Renew a loyal spirit within me. Restore me to the joy of your salvation and make me willing to obey you. The sacrifice you desire is a broken spirit, a certain vulnerability, if you will. You will not reject a broken and repentant heart, oh God. And I pray this. I pray this for myself every day. I pray this for you guys as we jump into this whole Enneagram thing. As we jump into this next series, I pray that we can be a congregation, a family, a group, a community, a room of people who can say, create in me a clean heart, O Lord. Create in me a clean heart. We know that the sacrifice you desire is a broken spirit. I pray that we can come to God with this attitude and being honest with Him. The second person that we have got to be honest with, in order to step into who it is that we are supposed to be, we have to have honesty with ourselves, right? You have got to be honest with yourself. And that sounds silly, but no one lies to you like you. I do it every time I look in the mirror and suck my gut in. Like, seriously. I still think I'm in my 20s. And I am not in my 20s. Actually, it hurts my ribs to suck my guts in now. It's terrible. It's terrible. Nobody, you are a jerk to you. You are. You lie to yourself on a daily basis. We are convinced that our accomplishments or our lack of accomplishments totally and completely define who we are. Does anybody have a moment where they want to accomplish something and then a snapshot from their past that is super shameful is dropped in front of their face and it completely takes the wind out of their sails? Because it does for me. You look in the mirror and you say stuff like, you got this. Right? You talk to yourself in the mirror? Okay. I don't. You guys are weird. Knowing very good and well that you don't got this because you don't trust yourself, because you lie to yourself. You know your weakness. And as of the first point of this sermon, God knows your weakness too. So that's two of you that know your weakness. Afraid of how you're going to mess this up. You're wide-eyed and mystified about this world that you can step into, that you can be a part of, that you can change, that you can progress in. But then you have that little bit of fear in the back of your mind that says, how are you going to mess this one up? What are you going to say? Who are you going to honk off? Who are you going to offend? What are you going to do that's going to mess this up? Or maybe you look in the mirror and you say, I got this. And it's from a place of pride, thinking to yourself that you are a self-made man. And there is no such thing as a self-made man. You've heard me say that before. There are always circumstances and people and community that's involved in making you who you have become up to this point. Not to mention the fact that a self-made man is biologically impossible. I'm just saying. Ask your mom and dad. So regardless of what you've done or what you've not done, what you've accomplished or what you failed at, you will never be able to step into the true you until you can be like this guy, the Apostle Paul. All right? It's in Isaiah 64, or I'm sorry, the Apostle Paul didn't say that. Isaiah said that. Isaiah 64, verse 6, it says, "We are all infected and impure with sin. When we display our righteous deeds," so already in the first part of this verse it says, "I'm not good enough." And as you display in that attitude that, yeah, I am good enough, your righteous deeds are nothing but filthy rags. Filthy rags. If you knew what this verse meant, you'd throw up in your mouth a little bit. Okay? This was an offensive saying at this point in time. I'm not going to unpack it. If you want to know, ask me a question. We'll throw up in our mouths together. Like autumn leaves, we wither and fall, and our sins sweep us away like the wind. There is just this thing that we need to understand. I want to unpack this really quick. Sin is a big problem. As a matter of fact, for humanity, it's the biggest. Sin is a huge problem. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. No one in this world can overcome the power of sin without the power of Christ. He is the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except by Him. And this means if you're being honest with yourself, you are not the way. You are not the truth. You are not the life. Your degrees cannot be the way. Your pedigree cannot be the way. Your GPA cannot be the way. Your stats on the ball field cannot be the way. Especially if you're 40 years old and you think you're a big deal because you're awesome at church softball. I mean, really. Your 401k is not the way, truth, and life. Your perfect-looking life with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, white picket fence, minivan and truck, because you have a little bit of family and a little bit of masculinity there, right? Your 2.5 kids and your designer dog cannot be the way. It cannot be the truth, cannot be the life. In other words, you are not enough. Not for this problem. For a lot of problems you are, but not for this problem. And it just so happens that it is the biggest and worst problem in all of humanity for all of humanity. I like the way the Apostle Paul unpacks it, his attitude toward this whole thing, this whole sin thing, this whole pride thing, this whole self-doubt thing. He says this in Philippians chapter 3. He says, "Though I could have confidence in my own effort, if anyone could. Indeed, if others have reason for confidence in their own efforts, I have even more. I was circumcised when I was 8 days old, which was the rule for the Jewish religion." He's like, I started out strong. Like from day 1-ish, day 8, I started out strong. I am a pure-blooded citizen of Israel and a member of the tribe of Benjamin. Trace that back throughout almost all of history of humanity. I can tell you my pedigree. I was a member of the Pharisees who demanded the strictest obedience to the Jewish law. I was so zealous that I harshly persecuted the church. And as for righteousness, I obeyed the law without fault. I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done.
Yes, everything else is worthless when compared with the infinite value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake, I have discarded everything, counting it all as garbage, so that I could gain Christ. That word garbage is crazy. When you hunt that down in the original Greek text, they don't really have a word for it that could describe it the way that he's trying to describe it. Paul says, no matter what I've done, it's all garbage. It's all trash. It's all rubbish. That's probably the closest thing they could have found in that language. In Greek, it's called skubalon. All right? It's all skubalon. And by today's standards, the only word we could find for it is a word that's considered offensive. As a matter of fact, he probably would have had a bumper sticker on his chariot that said, skubalon happens, if you know what I mean. That's the word. Because it was like his righteousness and his sin was so offensive that he could only describe it in an offensive way. You need to understand the gravity of this situation. It has this emphasis on the sheer nastiness of our relationship with sin and our sheer, like our carnal desire and nature in general. It's nasty. It's crap, if you will. This was meant to call us out and realize that our righteousness, our accomplishments, and even our failures fall offensively short compared to who Jesus is. So if you're being honest with yourself, no matter how good you are or how bad you think you are, it's still not good enough. And it may not even be bad enough, right? It's not good enough to fix things. It's not bad enough to spread you so far apart from Jesus that he can't fix things. Who I am, what I think I've done, what I think I haven't done that I need to be done, all of that is crap compared to who Jesus is in my life. The third thing is we need to have honesty with each other, with others. If we are going to go through this journey together, we can't come in guarded. And I say that up here, but that's hard. You look around, some of these people you don't hardly know. Do you really want to be an open book? Do you really want to be able to have conversations that come from a place of vulnerability? Because, I mean, if you think about it, I can't lie to God. And you can just kind of lie to yourself, but you can definitely lie to others, right? Yes? Are you guys freaked out? This is tense. Something's going on here. It's because I said crap, isn't it? But you can lie to others. Some of you have even lied to others in the past 30 minutes. You don't believe me, do you? Does this sound familiar? You walk in, somebody says, "Good morning. How are you today?" And you say, "I'm great." Liar. You're not great. You're not. You've threatened your kids 15 times to get dressed to get here to church. You're not great. You and your wife fought all the way to church because your kid's acting like the other one, right? Like that's not my kid, that's your kid. And he's all like, "Nuh-uh. I'm the guy. I'm not the one that's late for everything." Unless you're Ryan. Right? I think Ryan made Steph late today. I'm just throwing that out there. Was the car ride tense? Okay, good. Are you great? I don't know where to go with that. But the fact of the matter is you aren't great. You fought with your kids. You fought with your wife. You're freaking out about how to make ends meet this month, this week. What it looks like to have enough gas to get to work this week, to have enough money so your kids can have lunch, right? Some of y'all are really bad because you lost a hundo on the McGregor fight last night. right? You thought he was going to lose, and he didn't. And so now you're $100 down. And the question is, who do you think you're fooling? Honestly, a bunch of screwed up people that walk into a room and say, I'm great. We all know we're lying to each other, right? I have a handful of people in my life that I don't have to do that with. I can say, here's what's going on. Here's why life is great right now. Here's why life sucks. And sometimes it's both of those at the same time. Why do we feel that number one, that we need to fool everybody? And why would we feel like we can fool everybody? Because we're all on the same playing field here. We talked about this. You're not good enough. Sin is a problem. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We're all on the same playing field. I think it's because we care too much about what others think of us. Right? We really do. So we lie a little bit. And the problem is, the quickest way to forget what God thinks about you is to worry about what everybody else thinks about you. Right? So you run into an old friend and you catch up and they say, how's life going? And you say, living the dream. Right? Have you ever said that? I went through a phase where I said that until I realized that I should not say that crap. You say, I'm living the dream. Except for oftentimes it's somebody else's dream and putting money in somebody else's pockets, right? And then when you really think about it, it's not your dream, it's your nightmare in somebody else's dream, right? And so when you say, I'm living the dream, really what your eyes are saying is, somebody please help me, right? And I want to, it all disappeared. And I want to unpack a story. And it's often kind of overlooked in the Bible. We read through it, and it's in one of those books of the New Testament that's not like really a storytelling book. So a lot of times we look over it. But there's a great story, and I believe that this moment is super pivotal in the Apostle Paul's ministry. Super pivotal. It's a longer one, so bear with me here. It's Galatians chapter 2, verses 4 through 13. It says, even that question came up only because of some so-called believers that were there, false ones, really who were secretly brought in. They sneaked in to spy on us and take away the freedom that we have in Christ. They wanted to enslave us and force us to follow their Jewish regulations. But we refused to give in to them for a single moment. We wanted to preserve the truth of the gospel message for you. And the leaders of the church had nothing to add to what I was preaching. By the way, their reputation as great leaders made no difference to me at all. Like, I didn't care what their pedigree was, because the gospel was my focal point. All right? For God has no favorites. Instead, they saw that God had given me the responsibility of preaching the gospel to the Gentiles, just as he had given Peter the responsibility of preaching to the Jews. For the same God who worked through Peter as the apostle to the Jews also worked through me as the apostle to the Gentiles. In fact, James, Peter, and John, who were known as pillars of the church, recognized the gift that God had given me. And they accepted Barnabas and me as their co-workers. They encouraged us to keep preaching to the Gentiles while they continued their work with the Jews. Their only suggestion was that we keep on helping the poor, which I have always been eager to do. But when Peter came to Antioch, I had to oppose him to his face. Now, this is drama. This is scandalous right here. If there was a movie about this, this would be that moment where it's tense, where the fertilizer is about to hit the fan, okay? He said, I had to oppose him to his face, for what he did was very wrong. When he first arrived, he ate with the Gentile believers who were not circumcised, but afterward, when some friends of James came, this James was more than likely the brother of Christ, and he carried a lot of clout, all right? Whenever James showed up, Peter wouldn't eat with the Gentiles anymore. He was afraid of the criticism from these people who insisted on the necessity of circumcision. As a result, other Jewish believers followed Peter's hypocrisy, and even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. And so let me ask you, who's Paul? Like when you think about this moment, who is Paul? He's that guy that showed up to the party late. He didn't actually get to see Jesus physically do his thing. He wasn't a part of that 12. He wasn't in the Garden of Gethsemane. He wasn't taught. He wasn't there whenever the storms were about to capsize the boat and Jesus calmed the storm. He was not there then. So who is he to oppose Peter, the guy who was? Like, who does he think he is? Not to mention, he killed Christians. And who is Peter? Well, he's the big dog apostle, part of the inner circle. He got to go a little farther in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus, in a sense, from the cross, charged him to take care of his mother. He takes Peter's confession and says, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. That Peter. And so if you're the guy that shows up to the party late, and there's something going on that shouldn't be going on, and you're about to step up to the big dog, you really need to think about that. You really need to think about what the others think about you. But the problem is, Peter, the big dog, was worried about what the others were thinking about him, and it caused him to lead others into hypocrisy. And Paul, the guy who should have cowered, doesn't cower because he doesn't want this hypocrisy to happen. He confronts the problem regardless of what Peter or anyone else thinks besides God. He wants to uphold the message of the gospel at all costs, even if it means Peter is going to hate on him from here out, even if it means Peter is going to try and discredit who he is as an apostle, which sounds like an impossible opossum, or maybe some sort of a superhero. But he was going to love the people that the religious people didn't want to love. And I can get down with that. Because I've been the people that the religious people don't want to love. And I love the people that the religious people don't want to love. He's going to love them regardless. But wait, he's not going to sit at that table with people eating bacon, is he? Because at that point in time, bacon was a big deal. All right? It reminds me of something. These guys called the Sanhedrin, they were following Jesus around, and they were peeking into this house that this tax collector, Matthew, invited him to. And he's saying, why is this man who claims to be the Son of God sitting at a table with notorious sinners? That was the term that they used, notorious sinners. But Paul, he didn't care about that. He decided to overcome that fear of not being accepted by the big dogs. And so as we allow the next few weeks to help us hone in on who we are, who we aren't, and who we need to be, it is imperative that we have the permission here to not worry about what the other person thinks. In a sense, this is kind of like a bunch of beggars helping each other find a loaf of bread. That's what these next 9 weeks are going to be. We're all hungry. We're all screwed up a little bit. We all lie to ourselves a lot. We all lie to each other a little. We all have insecurities. We've all done bad things. We've all done good things. We've all accomplished some things. Let's get that out of the way now and just be honest about it. Because if we can be honest about that, if we can be honest with God and honest with ourselves and honest with each other, then as we take these next steps, we are going to see, as it's laid out in front of God, that He does greater things with it than we ever could. That whenever we can hone in on our strengths and our weaknesses, we can take those to the bank and we can trust God that God made us who we are in the way that He made us, for the reason that He made us, with the purpose that He made us. And we can step into who that person is. Honesty is going to be a main ingredient in this equation over the next several weeks. And so my challenge, not just to you, but to myself, is to be vulnerable and honest with who I am, who I'm not, and who it is that I want to be, which is ultimately that guy that cries out to God and says, will you please create in me a clean heart? Will you renew your spirit in me? Will you restore the joy of salvation? Because the weight of this culture and this world and everything going on in my life is crushing me, and I need something. And that something is God. And a little bit of faith in myself too. And the ability to be honest with one another. So with all of that being said, in the light of Great Gatsby, as we start this 9 weeks, let's party. Right? Let's party. What happens at parties? Sometimes you do some things that you wouldn't normally do, right? I know some of y'all. Some of y'all take your shirt off and sing Garth Brooks tunes at the top of your lungs with a lampshade on your head, thinking that's going to hide you from somebody, right? Some of y'all hang out and you have a group of people that you're with that you're able to say things that you normally wouldn't say. Some of y'all, I told you I'm going to be honest. You know one thing that I love to do? I love to get together with friends and play board games. Nerd. Super nerdy. I like to play board games. It's a lot of fun. Now, our whole family, we get together at the kitchen table and we play board games sometimes. And I also like to invite friends in. Or it's Mario Kart, but it's kind of boring now since I beat everybody. It's like the same game over and over again. But the thing about it is this is an opportunity for us to party. And a lot of times whenever we go to a party, we're willing to just accept things that we wouldn't normally accept because of the environment that we're in. So let's make this a party and be willing to accept these things, like we're going to be honest. We're going to be unashamed in our shame. We are going to trust God. We're going to be vulnerable. We're going to be honest with God. We're going to be honest with ourselves. And we're going to be honest with each other. If anything, can I ask that for the next 9 weeks? Then you guys can go back to being jerks to yourself and everybody else. That's fine. Just give us a chance. So we're going to jump in to the great That's Me. The great That's Me. And throughout this 9 weeks, you're going to look at some of these things that we talk about, and you know what you're going to say? It's me. That's me. You're going to look at some things you don't relate to, and you're going to say, that's the stuff I hate. Right? Or you're going to say, that's the stuff that I don't understand. And even in that, you whittle things down and find out both who you are and who you are not. So we're going to start next week, and we're going to talk about the reformer. Okay? And I hope you guys all come back and really, really, really step into this from a place of honesty. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you so much for your love and your grace and your mercy and the fact that you have created us all completely different, but also all on the same level playing field, with the same major need and the same major purpose in our lives, just in a different flavor, with a different angle. And I pray that we can be honest with ourselves and just step into that honesty that we can be honest with each other and allow others to be comfortable in that honesty, and that we can trust in you to shape us through this next series, through these next several Sundays, as we take this journey together as Fall City Christian Church. Lord, we love you and we thank you so much for your son Jesus, who died for us once and all. And if there is anybody in this room that needs to take that next step in beginning a relationship with God and finding out not only who they are not, but who they are able to become because they are a child of God, I pray that they grab a hold of me or grab a hold of one of the other leaders here, and that we can begin to walk beside them in that conversation. In the name of Jesus, I ask and pray. Amen. Hey, guys, have a great week. Don't forget, for those of you who have given throughout 2019, we have the giving statements in the nursery check-in area. Make sure you pick that up. All right? Bye.